Professor Brain Brown's research shows that vulnerability fosters good emotional and mental health. It is a sign of courage. We become more resilient and brave when we embrace who we truly are and what we are feeling. The Vulnerable Scientist podcast is a space for scientists to tell their honest and authentic stories. I am your host, Sarah Nyakeri, who happens to be a scientist, informal science communicator, and I help scientists create personal websites. If you want to support this show, go to www.patreon.com/thevulnerable-scientist. You can also follow this podcast on all social media platforms at TV Scientist Pod. Dr. Caroline Wanjiku is an entomologist, and she is telling a story of how she got to where she is right now. So at this point, she's talking about how she got into how she got her first job. Yes, so you're talking about internship at CVI.
Yes, so in my third year, I was looking for internship. I've done CVIL, it's second year, I finished and gone back to school. I've done my third year, first semester, I guess, then second semester, and there was a break in between. I've looked for another internship. I've ended up in a hospital lab, and I was just about to say, remember how the biochemistry guy said you can work anywhere?
Yeah.
You remember that one from undergrad, from the registration of courses.
Yeah.
Now I end up in a hospital, and they're like, yeah, you've studied biochemistry. Yeah, you can work in the clinical chemistry lab. So I end up in a hospital doing a short internship, and I'm just basically analyzing samples. And I was put in the clinical chemistry, and they had a project that was kind of like what do you call it? A community project, and they were basically following up patients who had HIV. So I ended up working on a lot of HIV samples, and doing a lot of viral loads and things like that while I was there for that short stint. Of course, it came and went. I left, I went back to uni. Now I'm in my third year. I'm about finalizing my third year. So in my fourth year, KU went on this massive riot. And then, of course, the university was closed indefinitely. It was one of those indefinite closures.
Yeah.
And now we were just,
at
home. And there's nothing to do. And being me, there was no way I was just going to sit at home.
Yeah.
And so I started looking for internships. But this time it wasn't easy. I mean, because I'd exhausted all the other places, and I tried checking with them, and they're like, no, we don't have internship opportunities now.
Are you still there?
Sarah, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have internship.
Sorry, I'm too quiet.
No. I actually thought the signal's gone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So they were like, no, we don't have any internship opportunities now. You could try elsewhere. So I got a bit desperate because nobody was telling us when uni was going to come back.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, hey, I might just as well make myself useful. And in any case, I'm in the fourth year, and I'm just about to leave school, and I don't know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So I came up with this ingenious plan. I listed. Now I thought, okay, so I've worked in a hospital, so I've worked in a veterinary lab. I might just want to try industry and get and sample and see how it feels, if I like it or not. So I thought to myself, what do people in industry do? What do they need? And then I came up, quality assurance. So I need to look for companies that have a quality assurance department, and then I need to try and secure something there. Then I thought, the people with, then I was doing a little bit of reading and looking up on the internet, and then realized, pharmaceutical industries usually have very strong quality assurance departments. I thought, let me try my hand in there and see if I like it. Anyway, so I came up with a list. I always tell people this, and it's a funny story. I came up with a list of all the pharmaceutical industries I could find in industrial area.
Wow. How did you find that list? In the internet? Or you went...
There was a yellow pages at home. First, I used the yellow pages, I think.
Huh? Sorry?
I used the yellow pages in the beginning. And then I think I went... Then there was internet, and there was a cyber cafe close by home. And then I was also trying to check a few of the places. So I had a elaborate list where we... And the roads, the roads in industrial area are in alphabetical order. Did you know that?
I didn't know.
Well.
What?
There's an A, a B, and so forth. Well, I don't know whether there's a C, but I did highlight a few places I wanted to go. So I started going to those places, road by road. Today, I'd say, we are going to Isiolo. I mean, I don't remember the name of the roads, but I'm just thinking Isiolo Road.
Wait. Who's funding this search?
My mother was funding this search. My mother was giving me bus fare every day.
What did she think when you told her that idea?
I didn't tell her I'm going road by road, but I told her I'm going to Australia to try and find an internship in a pharmaceutical company, and I want to try my hand in quality assurance or quality control, something in those lines.
Okay.
And she was like, that's a good idea because we don't know when uni is going to resume.
Yes.
She funded this search, by the way. And,
okay.
I mean, I think without her, I wouldn't have come as far as I have come, and I owe a lot of things to her. Yeah. So I would go. So I did the first day, the second day, the third day. I'd go, I'd knock on doors. Oh, no, there are no internships. No, we don't have a QA department. The usual. And then I think I got to a certain alphabet. Can't remember now. It's a long time.
Yeah. And
the company was Beta Healthcare. And I showed up just before lunch. And the head of quality assurance was going for lunch. And so I came in and I said, I want to see the head of QA. And they were like, oh, good luck. He's just stepping out. So prior to that, maybe to take you back a little bit, a friend of mine had said to me, if you present yourself in places, you need to fix your CV.
Every time.
They had given me, you have to have like a proper CV. You need to do your CV professionally. And apparently there was a company those days in town. I can't even remember where it was based, that they used to, what is it called? Like edit your CV, spruce it up and make it look good. So I'd gone to one of those places and paid, I guess it was like, I don't know, that it was 1,000 bob. In those days, it was a lot of money. And they done my CV professionally and printed it on a special type of paper. Okay.
Even there's a paper.
Yeah, there's a paper. There was a paper. I don't know whether I still have a copy. I think I always retained one for keepsake. Okay. It had this paper that is like, how do I say it? It's not hard paper. I don't know what to call it. The gauge was not, your usual standard printing paper. It was heavier. It looked better. It was cream or yellowish in color. There was just some...
Shiny.
It wasn't shiny. No, it wasn't shiny. Okay. It was... I mean, if I, for the lack of a better description, I think it was like a matte finish on that paper. Anyway, so I'd paid a tidy sum to get my CV revamped, and to showcase my work experience. I'd been to CVIL, I'd been to a hospital, I'm studying this, and my course units had been listed. Yes, so I was making headway those days. Yeah. So anyway, I show up and this guy says, what do you need? I say, I'm looking for an internship. And I say, I have come with my CV. Here's my CV. Oh, you are fourth year. Yeah, he looks at my CV. Now, I don't know whether it's the paper or it's the effort to go and find the place. This guy was like, where do you live? Then I told him, I live all the way in Kabete. And he's like, oh my God, this place is so far from where you live. And he's like, I'm so sorry. I've just given out the last internship today. Oh. I don't have any internships, but I am so impressed by your efforts. I'm going to help you find an internship. Okay. He said, do you know a company called Cooper Kenya? It was Cooper Kenya then. It's now Cooper K Brands Limited. Okay. Do you know? I'm like, yeah, I've heard about it. It's at Loresho, right? He's like, it's just down your alley. Have you tried there? I'm like, actually, no. I mean, because I hadn't thought that far. When I said I wanted quality assurance, I just thought pharmauticals. And when I thought pharmaceuticals, I thought humans. Yeah. I didn't think animals.
Have pharmaceuticals.
Right? Yes. So I said, yeah, I've heard about it, but don't they do animal health stuff? He's like, yes. But they have a quality assurance department. And the head of the quality assurance department was an old colleague of his. I can't remember whether they had gone to school together or they had worked together previously. I don't remember the relation, how they knew each other, the relation, but they did. And he said, I am going to send you to him and present yourself, present your CV, just as you have here, and see if they can secure for you something. Yeah. So the next day now, I wasn't going to industry area.
Yeah. I was going to do your alphabets.
to do my alphabets to find a job. And so I showed up there, and of course, I had an appointment because prior, this colleague had called him and let him know that he was going to send a certain student who's going for an internship, and whether he can have a look at my CV and whether they can slot me in whenever they have an opportunity. That was the deal. So anyway, I showed up with my papers and we spoke, and he said, no, we don't have anything now, but you have to wait a couple of months. But when something comes up, we'll slot you in. Apparently, their internship process was rigorous. You have to do an interview, an oral and a written. And if you pass, because, it's competitive, then you come in, we pay you a small amount of money. That was the deal.
Yeah.
So
I think it's still that way.
I don't know.
Yeah, I did an interview with them some time back.
Okay. Could be this way.
Okay.
Right. So I left my paperwork and I went home. So for a moment, I rested a little bit and I was like, okay, this alphabet thing is going to, it's going to kill me. If I continue just going to industry area every day. So while I was waiting, I believe maybe I waited a week or two. And then one day, just at random, one lunchtime, somebody called me and they introduced themselves and said they're calling from there. And they said they have internship opportunities and they'd like to invite me for an interview. And so that's what I did. I showed up for the interview. I did the oral. I did the written one. And I guess I did something right. They were impressed by me. And I was offered an internship. And that's how I started at Cooper's.
So you started as an intern?
I started as an intern. So when I finished my internship, or shortly before I had finished my internship. When I was coming to the end of the internship, then KU decided, you know what, we'll resume. So I went back to school.
Okay.
I went to go do my final exams for my final semester. And then now left. Of course, waiting for the processes, which is graduation and whatnot. So while I was out, I went back there. I said to these guys, I did an internship with you guys. I enjoyed my stay here and my work and the work experience that I got. And now I've finished my undergraduate. Will you take me on? And they were like, nothing at the moment, but keep checking. So while I was waiting...
It's nothing.
I know, yeah. Yeah, they were like, well...
blah, blah, blah.
Okay. Sour. I'll just go home. I'll wait. I'll fight. But you know me, I don't wait. Okay. So while I was waiting to see if they give me something, I kept hunting. I think mine has been a hunt all through. Now when I talk about it is when I realize how much work.
Yeah, you put into trying to find an opportunity. So where did you hunt again? Like, did you go thinking about industry?
Hunting. No, I continued thinking about industry, and I remember. So there's a pharmaceutical company I think in Kikuyu. It's called Universal Health Corporation or something like this. And I remember just stalking the head of QA and taking my paperwork and emailing him and just showing up and saying, do you have something? While I was in the middle of that, one of my contacts from my old internship at the hospital, they had a small little project they were doing on health education in primary schools. And they needed somebody to do that bit of the work, and they recruited me for a little while. And we were doing a typhoid campaign. And, I was busy with that for some time. And then I had from my old company, Cooper's, and they said, you know what, we have an opening and we think we can offer you something. So this time, because I'd finished school, it was no longer an internship, but they offered me an entry-level job. So it wasn't too long after, in fact, it was before I formally graduated. So by the time I was, getting my undergraduate degree, I was already now working for Cooper's. At an entry-level position.
Yeah.
They used to call it in-process quality control. I was an in-process quality controller. And that's where it started. And I stayed at Cooper's for the next X number of months. I guess it was 10 months, close to a year. I took up a lot of assignments. In fact, I gobbled up work I had, my tasks just kept growing by the day. I learned a lot. At some stage while I was there, my boss was, confident with my work so much so that he actually sent me to their office in Tanzania to supervise a job.
Wow.
I think for 2 weeks. And, well, I'd say it was growth, and it was exponential growth. It was a steep learning curve, but it was exponential growth.
What do you think that did to you? Like that, okay, apart from, being added responsibilities as you go, that someone entrusting you and sending you to another country to represent them, what do you think that did to you?
That's very clear to me. What happened, what I quickly realized was I had gotten to the point where, because I think the whole time I was looking at myself as somebody who's learning, and then suddenly I realized, wait a minute, I have learned the ropes of how to do this.
Yeah. And
now they are no longer adding value to me, but I'm also bringing value.
Yes.
To the company. That was like an aha moment for me. I was like, wait, I've actually grown. I've grown quite a bit. And I was like, wait, if they can entrust me with a job in another country, and I went there by myself, and I was 22 or 23 years old.
What? 23?
I think I was 23 or going to turn 24. I don't think I was 24 yet. And they had this, confidence that they could send me and that I could supervise this job. I always remember when I showed up in Tanzania, and the driver who came to pick me up, when they picked me up at the hotel, the first thing he said is, "Oh my God, these guys have sent a teenager to do this job."
Can you say it in Swahili?
Wametuma teenager kufanya hii kazi. I was a very scrawny 24-year-old, very tiny. I think I weighed 49 kilos or 50.
Oh.
So I didn't strike them as the supervisor they had been waiting for.
By the way,
and I was a girl.
Oh.
Doesn't help, eh?
Yeah, it doesn't help. Imagine, I feel like this thing of size when it comes to certain positions, like, I don't know, there's like a thing that plays there. Do you feel that way?
All the time. I've been feeling this way for a very long time. In fact, I think I've been petite for a long time. I mean, the only advantage to it is that I'm a bit tall, eh?
Yeah.
But I guess, I don't know how people are classified. I mean, you can't size people according to their ages. It's just a ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
But there's that, and especially if you're a woman, and for some reason you're petite. Now you're petite. You're a woman.
Just inaudible.
It's like you just don't take up space, and people are like, okay, just another fly on the wall. This is how I felt then. But then again, you can't even begin to measure people based on their size and their body size.
Yeah.
I mean, it has no bearing whatsoever on their potential. It has no bearing whatsoever on their knowledge or skills.
Yeah.
It's a strange parameter that people use.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's I don't know what's worse. I don't know whether size is even I guess size is like the worst. I mean, there are many levels to that whole thing. But I think size. But I mean, the person who sent me to take up this assignment knew that I was equal to the task, and really I was. I mean, my then boss had full confidence in me, and I mean, this is a company that is looking to make money. There's no way they're going to make mistakes with the decisions of the people that they send to supervise jobs. And I was equal to the task, and I completed my assignment successfully with a positive report, and we were able to do what we were supposed to do, and I stayed on top of things.
How was it like going to another country as an individual? Because that was the first time. That was the first time, right? It was
the first time traveling alone and traveling out of the country. It was a bit scary.
And you're staying at your mom's still?
Yes, I was a baby. I was living in my mom's house, but I mean, I had her blessing to go. My organization had catered for, how I was going to go, how I was going to arrive. I mean, all of that was worked out. I think, of course, I had to have some nerves then and some jitters about just traveling. But then I think once I hit the ground and I started, going, then I was like, I'm going. So I have to arrive and I have to go and do what it is that I've been sent to go and do. And I did.
Yeah.
And I came back. But it was the first time to do solo travel for work. And it was a little bit scary, but I was fine. It worked out great.
Okay, so you're still in this company, you're moving forward.
So now I realized I'm growing. I realized I'm bringing some value to it, and I thought perhaps maybe I should start advocating for myself. I've always had this belief, and I've been raised. I'd like to say my parent is very democratic. And by democratic, I mean that even in the household, you're allowed to make decisions. You're allowed to contribute to decisions. You're allowed to say, I don't like this. I think there's an alternative to it. Or, you know, and for that reason, I've always known how to advocate for myself. I mean, this is one of the life skills that I was given. I mean, apart from reading books and, you know, that I was given when I was really very young. And I've always known how to advocate for myself.
I hope any parent who's listening to this part just picks that up. Like, how important it is to let a child even decide what cloth to wear. Like those small, or have a say in something. Like, it really plays a big role, you know, in future where they get to.
Absolutely. I can tell you for a fact, I hear people saying when they were teenagers, they couldn't choose their own clothes. I always say that when I was 16, my mother would allow me to choose what I want to wear. She'd allow me to choose. In fact, I remember, I always make fun and I tell people when I was 16, I used to wear a toe ring.
What is that?
I used to wear a ring on my toe.
Oh, a toe ring. I've never even... Oh my God.
I used to wear a toe ring. And it was not until I went to high school and somebody asked me. It was the only thing I'd wear. I wasn't one of those crazy teenagers. I was a very well-behaved teenager. I mean, I wasn't a rebel. I wasn't anything like that. But I was fascinated by the fact that there's something like a toe ring. And I loved jewelry. I mean, still do. And so I used to wear a toe ring. And people are like, but it had never occurred to me that for some people it would have been impossible. I mean, I've been wearing this thing, I think, since I was 16. I mean, it was an expression of I don't know what. Don't ask me what it was an expression of, but it's just something I liked. And I had and my parent, because I think we had already established this relationship between us, and which was built on trust. And she had done a lot of work to ensure that I'm well grounded. I think now she was easing me into being able to start to make my decisions.
Yeah.
A lot of parents don't do that. What parents do is that they shelter their children. Yeah. And then just let them off in one go.
Yeah, at once. Like, now go.
At once. Now you're on the edge of the cliff and then you'll be told to jump.
So sad.
It is sad and it is scary.
Yeah.
But I think I was slowly eased into decision making and advocating for myself and choosing what I want to do, you know, in kind of like an age appropriate way throughout. Yeah. So, but I mean, by the time I even got to these spaces, and I think this is what gave me the confidence to go to all these places that I went to. Yeah. Considering now when I talk about it and when I think about it, considering that I was a girl, I should have been reserved. Yeah. And, you know, afraid. But I wasn't. And every day after a hunt, I mean, I would sit down and review notes with my mother and tell her, today I was here and I met this and this person and I didn't like this and this and this. How can I, you know, we used to have this sort of conversations. And I think that's an element that is sometimes missing. Especially when children go to school and now they are at the place where they have to start choosing their careers. And now the parents, not a lot, but I'd assume it's an assumption because, I mean, I don't want to generalize, but I think a lot of parents just let you now take over. Yeah. They don't participate in the process. Yeah. You know, they just ask you, how did it go? Oh, okay, I have a friend, I can link you up. And perhaps for some of them, that's the most they do. Link you up and then just let you go figure. Yeah, eat out. For me, my career journey has been very strongly interwoven with my relationship with my mother. In fact, I say that anything I've experienced, she's experienced. I mean, even I getting a doctorate, that doctorate was equally hers as it was mine. Wow. She participated every step of the way. She was my sounding board. She was everything. She still is. So I guess then parents have a big part to play in terms of even just helping their kids even shape their careers and figure out life.
Yeah.
Anyway, before I go off on a tangent.
So you're talking about that, trying to make your decision. You got to a point where you wanted to make a decision about something you didn't say.
Oh, yeah. So now I was thinking, we go back to Tanzania and me discovering that now I'm bringing value and thinking I need to advocate for myself. I'm not earning enough. I need to probably go and have the dreaded conversation with my boss, which is, or with any boss, which is money. I think I'm working hard. I'm taking up a lot and I'm not being paid enough for what I do. And you're 23 and you just started and you
don't have responsibilities.
You don't have responsibilities. At the back of your head, you're thinking, you should be very grateful that you have this opportunity because you're privileged more than most. I mean, most of my peers at the time are still job hunting. So there was a little bit of that at the back of my mind. But I said to myself, no, let me just go and try and have this conversation with him. I mean, if he throws me out of the office, it's fine. But knowing and having had the kind of working relationship we did, I knew even if it was not going to go in the affirmative, he was going to tell me something I didn't know. Or he was going to give me something valuable that I could take away.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And so I went and we had this conversation. And let me tell you, I wasn't wrong. Because what he told me was so valuable. Of course, I didn't get the raise.
Okay.
I didn't secure the bag.
I was waiting for something.
I was too young to have a bag.
Okay.
No, on a serious note, I didn't secure the bag. But they said, he said they would look into it and he would initiate a process for HR to review and all of that. But over and above that, we had a really interesting conversation. Because then we talked about work and what fulfillment with a career means. I mean, for a 24-year-old at the time now, I think that was a very profound conversation we had. What it means to be satisfied with your job, to be fulfilled with your job, because there's a difference. There's a difference between satisfaction and fulfillment.
Yeah.
And so we started to have a conversation about, career development and growth and stuff like that. And so I stayed on. And then at this time, of course, now going back to what I talked about before, I was being given some tasks to do some R&D work, some research and development work to develop stuff. And then I was now starting to come face to face with kind of what research looks like. And I mean, the fascination had started to develop. And my boss was very instrumental because the kind of mentorship he gave me at that point really shaped up, how the rest of my career journey went. So I worked with him. He walked me through the processes. This particular small project was a challenge for me at that time, at that stage. But I took it up and he handheld me and showed me the ropes. And to a point, he said, now, okay, you develop this thing. Now you go over to the Pharmacy and Poisons Board and go and take your stuff for registration, see how that goes. These are the files that you need to go with, prepare them. It was a steep learning curve, but it was very valuable. Not valuable because I was going to work in industry again, but now I look at the skills that I picked up and the mindset, and I realized that it took me a long way, that it helped me a great deal, much, much, much later.
What do you mean?
In the sense, once I left the company and I went to school and I moved on, I didn't work in industry again.
Yeah.
But there are skills that I gained while I was working in that company that were very transferable to the other things that I was going to do later.
Like?
And when I showed up in those places, for example, working in the quality control department forced me, and in particular, that particular project, forced me to be very organized and methodical in how I did my lab work, which of course came to serve me very well when I was doing my master's project and my PhD. And I was, now up to date. I'm a stickler for processes. And that's a very key component when you're doing research. I mean, if you don't value processes, if you don't value standards, if you don't value quality, it's possible that you can do a lot of funny things when you're doing research, right? But now having that background from quality assurance and seeing what a process looks like and a process that can be reproducible, what that looks like, it kind of, it gave me that background. So what I was saying is that those skills then became relevant later.
The processes,
the processes and, just being able to do stuff methodically is an important component for a researcher. You have to be able to keep track of what you're doing and you have to be able to do stuff stepwise. you get, and to be consistent enough to do stuff that somebody else can reproduce somewhere else. Otherwise, then the data that you produce is not, is not valid.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that first experience working there grounded me in that way.
Mm.
And so now I've advocated for myself. We'd have a conversation about career and what a fulfilling career looks like and what a satisfying career looks like.
Mm.
And now I've had this brush with research, and I've started to think, ooh, this is something I could do. And then I'm like, okay, these people are not going to pay me much, or at least my salary won't increase, but they've given me value in terms of skills.
Yeah.
And for me to be able to earn more, perhaps I need another qualification.
Yeah, so that's what you had mentioned this before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you were talking about why you decided to do a master's, and now I
Precisely.
get what you're saying.
Now we come full circle.
Wait, did other people in the company have postgraduate degrees?
Not where I was at. Not at the level where I was.
Oh, okay, yeah. So how did you know about a master's? Like, how did you know about that?
So now when I realize, okay, I want to do research, probably I need a master's to secure a better paying job. I mean, that was the initial mindset that I had. And the default setting was I was coming from KU for my undergraduate. So by extension, I was going to go back to KU and try and see if I can do postgraduate degree there.
Okay.
And remember, this is just 1 year in. It's not like 10 years later. It's 2010. I started 2009 with Coopers, and then in 2010, towards the end of 2010, I think it was August, then I got into KU to do a master's degree. But anyway, the process of being able to decide what kind of a master's degree I was going to pursue wasn't as easy, wasn't as straightforward. Because at that stage I knew I wanted to do research, but then there's a whole catalogue of courses that you can do, right? And so I thought about it. At first, I was toying around with the idea of pursuing a master's in immunology because I was very good at immunology when I was an undergraduate.
Before that, this decision of, pursuing a postgraduate degree, did you share it with anyone? Or was it a thing that you're going on in your head alone?
In the beginning, it was just a thing in my head. And up to the stage where I went to do the registration, it was still a thing in my head. You know how you go and collect the forms and do the application and pay some money and then you wait. The moment where it stopped being in my head is when I one day came home from work very tired, and my mom said, "There's a huge envelope for you from KU." I thought you were done. And I said, "An envelope?" She said, "Yes, there's a huge envelope with your name." I was like, those must be old documents. Because up until this stage, I am afraid of voicing the idea that I'm thinking to resign.
Yeah.
Because I'm in a situation where my work has potential for growth if I stick with it.
Yes, in the company.
Jobs are not easy, yeah?
Yeah, and people are liking what you're doing, and you are enjoying your work, especially the research side. And now jobs are not easy to come by, and you're in a very good position. Like, you're in a very good position. Yes, the pay is not good, but you're in a very good position and potential to grow.
That is the thing.
And now
want to quit. I'm tired, and I'm not tired really, but I just want to move on to the next level.
Yeah.
And that sounds arrogant if you think about it. Back then it would have been considered arrogant. I think the generation that is there now, these guys were calling the Gen Zs, are not even afraid of doing this hop, skip, and jump.
Yeah.
But in my days, I thought, in those days I thought, anybody would look at it and think, this one is so arrogant. She thinks she's going to find the next big thing.
Okay, before you tell us about what your mom said, you're thinking about the masters that you wanted to do. Yes. You're good in immunology.
I was good in immunology, and I had very good rapport with the faculty, because immunology was being offered in the Department of Zoology. And remember, I was a zoology major. Yeah. So I was coming from that faculty, and so I knew my teachers there. And so transitioning back there would just have been like
easier. How do you feel after having this conversation so far?
It's, I've never had to tell the story anywhere. Wow. This is the very first time. I think that's why it's also a bit, I mean, the details just come and go. I mean, it's not like I wrote it down. I don't have points to.
And that's why I want it like that, though.
From memory, yeah. A lot of the things I'm saying now are very profound when I think about what I had to do and how much I've done to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's it's interesting, and I hope it can, inspire someone who's out there.
So take us through from you before moving to doing a master's. Just start that story again where you're trying to enroll to a master's degree and you're trying to decide what master's degree to pursue, or you're trying to decide, that part of quitting and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Because at this point,
question that you ask.
Yeah, because at this point you're now, you've passed through KU and the whole thing that came with choosing the subject and how that the course units and how that interwoven into your career up to now. And how that path, you didn't see at that time, but how that path has led you to where you are. And you now having a job that has potential to growth, but not money-wise necessarily. And you decide to pursue your career further. So, yeah, take us through that.
Yeah, so now, so we're at that stage where I have already, made up my mind, at least in my head, and I've gone to KU and I've done my application and I've paid my application fee and I've received this fat envelope from KU. And apparently it's an admission letter and all the other documents that come along with an admission letter.
Yeah.
And now the decision that was just, living in my head has come to life, because now I'm at a place where I have to decide whether I want to do this or not.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not just an individual decision. Other people would be involved. So now I have to start having these sort of conversations with people. And I think in that time, I don't know whether I mentioned, I felt like if I just went out and said, look, I don't want to, keep doing this job, perhaps people would have looked at me and thought, that's a little arrogant, given that there are no jobs, and given that you're very young, and given that you've just started, you have very little experience. Even though I had taken up so many roles, in the course of that short period of time, and I had learned so much, still, it's not like I had 5 years experience or 10 years experience. So, and for me to say, I don't want to do this, I want to go to the next level. That for me was not an easy decision. I was afraid in the beginning. And I think also internally, I was also, I was thinking, what if I set out to do this and I don't succeed at doing it and I fail and I don't see it through, and then I lose time and I lose money and, and perhaps maybe I will look back and think, I should have stayed at that job. It's I think...
It must be scary.
Yeah, making a decision like that is not easy. I don't think it's easy at any level.
Yeah.
It's not easy for a 24-year-old. It's not easy for a 27-year-old, for a 30-year-old. It's not. These decisions are never easy. But I think also with the, with the naivety that also comes with youth, now when I think about it, I think I should have even been more brave. I shouldn't have had this mindset. Like I said in the last podcast, I look at the kids now, these guys, the Gen Zs, and they are a lot more brave and they can leapfrog from one thing to the next. And I'm amazed that, at that confidence. And I look at them and I think, when I was that age, I was not that confident. If I was, I'd be miles and miles ahead of perhaps where I am now. But again, I was coming from a different generation. Our socialization and how we've been raised and what we were made to believe was different from what, the kids now are exposed to. Now in the era of the internet and, information everywhere, it's a lot different.
Yeah.
You know, you're not just depending like on one source of information in terms of where you're looking for advice and things like those, you know, other people's experiences that can help you also make better decisions. I mean, I think they're lucky now. Anyway, so for me, the first thing I needed to do was, of course, have this conversation with my parent, right?
Yeah.
Remember, I was living at home. I was living with my mom. She was, in every sense of the word, part of the process of what I was going through. I mean, trying to build this really career that I was trying to build at the time, which was in its infancy, you know. So, of course, I had to have this discussion and say, hey, I set out to make this application. I'm thinking maybe I need to progress with my studies for this and that reason, and I've been thinking about it, and this is why I'm convinced that this is the next best move I could make, and it's better now and not 2 years from now or 5 years from now, and you know. And I did have that conversation, and I was really surprised, because when I told her what was on my mind, she was like, oh my God, how come you didn't share this with me earlier? And I was like, wait, what? And she was like, this is an incredible decision you're about to make. And she's like, this is so bold. I like it. You know?
Wow.
I mean, I was shocked. I was a little taken aback. I was like, okay, this is nice. This is interesting. And she went straight on and she said, what do you need?
Wow.
And this is in the backdrop of, remember I mentioned that I came from a very humble family.
Yes.
And of course I was taking all of these things into account. And now I'm saying I want to go to graduate school. I'm not on a scholarship. I'm not on anything. I had a job, and now I want to leave this job to go to school. And the math was not mathing. You know what I mean? Like, there were worries. There were worries in terms of how will I go about it financially. But it's more like, you know, you set out your intentions to the universe. And if you do, and they are genuine, then the universe conspires to get you to where you want to go. It was something in those lines.
How much?
So when
whatever money you had at that point would take care of you for, like, in terms of tuition, for how long?
In fact, the money that I had would take care of my sustenance. It wouldn't take care of my tuition, not at all.
So you just took care of the application fee, and the rest you just didn't know what would happen.
I just threw myself out there.
Wow.
This is what I'm saying. I mean, I had little money in my bank, but this money was enough for sustenance, meaning it was enough to allow me to go to school and come home and pay for my bus fare and buy my lunch. And even with that, I didn't know how long.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I thought it would get me started. The idea that I had at the back of my head that I didn't really share with anybody was I was going to go and try, if I was going to find a way to pay my fee. I mean, because the first step, even before you're thinking about finding your fee, is doing the application, right? And having an admission letter. I mean, those are the basics. So once I had that out of the way, the next thing was, now, if I am able to just go through the first year of this graduate course, if I can go through the first year, I have enough to sustain me through the first year, and then I will drop out, try and find something to do, save up a little bit more,
then come back. Wow. What?
This is what was happening at the back of my head. This is what I had, but it's not necessarily something that, because it seemed so irrational. You know, those kind of things that you think about, and then you're thinking, if I say this to anyone, they'll just think honestly, I'm losing it. Yeah, like I don't have my act together. So that's what I really had at the back of my mind. But I think I was a bit afraid to voice it. Yeah. But then now I'm having this interesting conversation, amazing conversation with my parent, and she says to me, what sort of support do you need? And then, being me, I just I put everything on the table. I said, this is how much I have in my bank account. This is how much I've managed to keep aside for myself from my little job. This is how much school is going to cost. And of course, she had to prod and ask me, and how were you thinking about going through paying for your tuition and whatnot? And eventually I did tell her. I told her, well, this is what I was thinking. But, I made it very quick. Yeah, I was very quick about it. I did not want to pitch because I knew it was not even an idea that I could pitch. I mean, I knew it didn't make sense. But I said it quickly in passing.
Yeah.
But I said, if this is not possible, I don't have to pursue it now. I can defer for a year or two. I mean, I don't have to go now. I mean, of course, because you take into consideration your family situation, and what you're realistically able to do and what you're not able to do. And she said, okay, let me give it some thought. And while she was doing that, I, of course, had to also have this conversation with my boss, with my supervisor, because, now the possibility of going to school was in the works. Yeah. And I didn't want to be that person who just wakes up one morning and says, I'm not coming to work next month. I've never wanted to be that sort of person. I've always wanted to be the person who makes transitions nicely. And because, you have to think about tomorrow. You have to think about...
Yeah, not burning bridges and all that.
Yeah, don't burn those bridges because you might just circle back,
Yeah.
You might just circle back and you might also meet these people in different spaces. And so you never really want to burn those bridges. And especially when you're that young,
Yeah.
You try to hold on to everything you can hold on to.
Yeah. So
I did have this conversation with him. And it was interesting because he listened and he was like, wow, I think that is such a bold move. And I mean, he was all for it. He was like, I think this is great. I think it is better to start early than to wait for later because, of course, as you grow older, life becomes a lot more complex and, many other things arise. And so while you still have the energy and the mind of wanting to pursue this, I think it's great. But then he also posed this question. He said, now that we have that out of the way, let's talk about, the things that you would need to do to be able to go through school. He's like, how are you going to raise your tuition fees? You're not on a scholarship. First he asked me, are you on a scholarship? Did you get a scholarship? I said, no. And he said, okay, so how are you going to do your tuition fees? And I said, well, when I was making this application, I was thinking, I told him the whole story that I had at the back of my mind.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me. I think he was just, surprised by... Sometimes being youthful is nice. You're very idealistic. You think everything works like, A, B, C, D in that order. I mean, you even sort of think there's a manual to it.
Yeah. And there isn't.
And sometimes when a young person comes, now that I'm older, when a young person comes to me with, this sort of ideas, I look at him or her and I go like, wow. It is so nice to be young and trusting because as you grow older,
you can't do such. You can't even think.
You stop being trusting. Yeah, you're not brave anymore. Your experiences kind of shape you and you become fearful in some ways. But here I was making these lofty plans of how I was just going to secure another job, drop out of school, do it, save up money, go back. And it sounded, at the back of my head, it sounded credible. But I know the moment I voiced it, everybody around me was looking at me like, okay, no.
Yeah.
You have lost the plot. You've lost the plot. Anyway, so we did talk about it and I said, perhaps there's a possibility that my parent could be able to facilitate tuition fee. And he said, okay, if then that's the case, how are you going to then sustain yourself through school? Because it's not just about paying tuition.
Yeah.
You have to have lunch, you have to buy your reading materials, you have to go to school. You have to do the commute and you have to pay bus fare and all of those things. Anyway, so I said to him, well, for that, I have, saved up a little bit. And I think I could be able to do this for a short period of time. I won't be able to sustain myself throughout, but I have something to start me off. And I was always the sort of person who believes that when you start off something, then, I don't know, things kind of just align.
Yeah.
This is something I always knew growing up.
You just need to start.
You just need to start. The struggle was always getting started. The moment you get started, already the wheel is there, so the way just comes to you somehow.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, that's what I have, and that's what I could start myself up with. And he said, and at that stage, he was like, okay, perhaps you might want to consider multitasking between school and work. I was like, wait, what? You mean I could continue to work in school? I could do both? Is that even an option? He said, well, it depends on what the demands for your school look like, and if you can balance that with work, with the demands of work. And I said, you know what, I'm willing to take it. And I quickly learned that was not a good idea.
Of taking
after I now started my schoolwork, and I realized the science course requires everything you got.
Yes.
Being a part-time student is not necessarily the best approach.
Yeah.
You know, I tried balancing school and work, I think, for just barely a semester. And then I realized something is going to give. And that thing is going to be school. Remember now, at this stage, I've enrolled and I have gotten financial support from my parent, and she's paid for my tuition fee.
Yeah, wow.
For the first semester. Now I go to school with this understanding that the investment that has been placed on me is heavy. And there has to be a return on investment in terms of the money that has been put in for me to go to school, which is money that could have been directed somewhere else. Somewhere very important, but it wasn't. And now that investment is with me. So it has to have some sort of return. ROI. It has to have some sort of return. And I looked at how I was trying to juggle being in class and being at work, and I just realized something will give. And it's at that stage that I had a candid conversation with my boss, and I said, I don't think I have it in me to be able to multitask. I think what I have taken up requires that I'm a full-time student, and this is the only way I can do justice to this process.
This is after how long?
It was barely a semester.
Okay.
Less than. I mean, a semester is what, 3 months?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it was like in the second month. You know, as my courses started to become intense, and there was a lot of, reading to do and assignments and things like that. Then I just realized, no. So anyway, I'm not sure I did mention that I decided to study biochemistry, did I?
No.
How I arrived at that.
No,
okay.
You're talking about choosing about immunology, you're just there.
Yes. So, remember how I said I was leaning into like a master's degree in immunology because my major had been zoology, and I was very comfortable in the School of Biological Sciences. It was almost like home at KU.
Yes.
And I had done all the foundational courses in immunology, and I did very well. And it was a subject that just came naturally for me in terms of just being able to understand the concepts and all of that. I didn't struggle. And so it felt comfortable. But also I had, the small stint with the School of Biochemistry because that was my minor. And so when then I decided, okay, what course? So I was torn between the two. But then at the end of it all, after musing about it for a little while, I thought to myself, you know what? You remember what that guy said during your undergraduate? Yeah, that admissions guy. Remember how he said with biochemistry you can go anywhere and do anything? And I was like, well, the end of an academic journey really is not even at the master's level. Although now at the master's level you began the journey to specialization. Yes. But when you really think about it, you still have a master's degree to do, you still have a PhD to do, and all of that. And then it kept ringing in my head, and it was like, biochemistry, you can go anywhere, you can work anywhere, you can work in an industry, and I'd already done this. Remember, I was working in a pharmaceutical industry. I'd already seen how this foundation could allow me to
work wherever you want.
To work wherever I want. And I just thought to myself, do I want to box myself in? And I was like, no, I don't think I want to box myself in like that. And so quickly, I just made a turnaround and I went to the School of Biochemistry. And then I chose that, and then, I made the application and blah, blah, blah. I now moved forward. And now I have my tuition all sorted out. And I have had these conversations with people, and I've tried schooling and working, and it's not working, and I've decided I'm calling it quits. Yeah.
So immunology would have boxed you, right?
I felt like it would have boxed me in. And I was really afraid of that. In fact, being boxed in, I mean, generally in my life as a person, I've never really wanted to be the sort of person who is in situations that box them in. I've always wanted wiggle room. I've always wanted freedom to explore, freedom to say, maybe this is not too interesting. Maybe I want to try that tomorrow.
Yeah.
I guess that is a personality thing. It's not, I mean, in as much as now in the academic world, I mean, there are voices that helped support that. Or at least maybe I was leaning into those sort of, conversations and feeling like, okay, I think that's what they mean. I think that's for me, It's also like a personality thing. So I felt, if I go the immunology way, it might just box me in. And I thought, biochemistry, I can, if I change my mind tomorrow, I can go in a different direction altogether. And of course, I have all these foundational courses. And even within biochemistry, if you wanted to still go the immunology way, you could, especially given the sort of background that I had. And so I thought, maybe it's time I took this biochemistry and much. So that's how I arrived at that decision. And that's how it really started. That's how I got to start my graduate studies. Eventually now, when I had that candid conversation with my boss and said, I need to go because I'm not able to balance this very well. He gave me his blessings. I tendered in my resignation. It was accepted. And, the curtains on that particular part of my life fell. And that was that. And I moved forward.
Now you finished your coursework.
Yes. Now I've done the coursework. I've finished, and well, not really finished, because by the time I was done with, I remember when we got in the first semester of coursework, we had a module on statistics, I believe. And I remember the lecturer just asking us on day one, what do you really want to do with your master's degrees? What sort of arms of research would you want to go into? What are you thinking about? And I remember, for me, I was like, I definitely want to do something that's related to human health. And while we were having that conversation with that particular lecturer, she said the best time that you could start, zeroing in on places where you could go pursue your research is now, not after you're done with your coursework. The best time is now. And so I started to think, then we need to start looking. And now that is what brought me to the place. Remember how we said in the last episode that then I started now knocking on people's doors. I started looking up people on Google. I used any material that I could find to find people who are doing research and who are doing research that is sort of related to what it is that I was studying.
Yeah, and this is where you're telling the story of that parking lot incidents.
Yes. So I'd been to places that knock on people's doors, and that was one of those ones that I realized, they are doing some sort of, human health related research, although of course their model systems are primates. But primates and humans, just down the alley. So it was quite relevant. And I thought, perhaps this is the sort of place, and these are the sort of people I should start seeking out. And I did relentlessly. I did. I wrote emails. That's why I was telling you I would spam people's inboxes. I would write unsolicited emails. I wouldn't wait to see somebody looking for something. because those sort of things never even come up. You don't even see stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you just have to find these people, get the institutional emails, write them emails, introduce yourself, attach your CV, and just hope for the best, which is what I did. Followed people up, got a few appointments. So that particular experience, having to follow this particular scientist from Karen all the way to Museum Hill, was one of those experiences that I was like, oh my God, is this it? Is this what it looks like? So this is first semester we are done, and now we have I think we had a short break in between. So this is what I was doing during that short break. And, to follow him to the parking lot and for him to give me So it was 3 words he told me, I don't have a project for you. I guess those are not 3 or therefore. Yeah. And that conversation didn't last 10 seconds. Because I had nothing else to say thereafter.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay, thank you.
Wow.
And that was a low moment